Hey guys, Corey, Famous Media, and today I'm going to show you how to build your own custom editing and gaming computer. So I've been talking about it for a while. I've been building computers for a long time, expanding the channel into great avenues. Got a forum board coming up, still need beta testers. And I've been building computers for a long time, so I'm going to start, reviewing all different kinds of hardware because let's face it, if you're a videographer or photographer, you need a good editing station. So this is going to be some of the new stuff I'm introducing to the channel. This is a really good setup right here. In fact, this is pretty much the best setup for video gaming / editing. I'm also going to be reviewing some video games as well and start adding some more of that content to the channel. All kinds of good stuff coming. So I picked this setup. This is a really, really, really good setup. I mean, really good. I mean, did I say really enough? But this is a great setup. I'm going to go over it right quick and show you what I have in front of me and explain a few things. If you're looking at getting a nice editing station and you're doing a lot of 3D modeling and, different types of animation, and it's pretty intensive, this may not be the way to go. You may want to run a 5960 Extreme processor or a 5920, even a 5930, just depending on what your budget is. But this is a really good processor, and it's really, really fast. So this is a replacement for the Devil's Canyon, which is the 4790, which is a great CPU, but this is definitely faster and definitely a better CPU. It's just newer technology. So it's probably the better CPU choice at this point moving forward, because you could always take this CPU out in a year and replace it, keep the same motherboard, because this is the new generation of motherboards, and they're going to be here for at least the next 2 to 3 years. So let's go over and look at what I've got in front of me. Of course, I've got the Skylake processor, which is 4 gigahertz. It'll easily go 4.5 or 4.8 with this cooler from Cooler Master, or if you prefer the Noctua cooler, which I have a couple of those, they're fantastic. Now, I've got in front of me the Z178 X-Power Gaming Edition Titanium from MSI. The reason I went with the Titanium and not the M5, M7, or M9 series is because PCI Express slots for SLI or Crossfire are usually slots 1 and 2. They're very close. You only get about a half an inch at the most between the cards, can cause overheating. With this exact motherboard, the Titanium X Gaming Edition, it allows you to use slots 1 and 3, giving you significantly more room between the cards so they don't overheat. This is a great motherboard. It's fantastic. I'm using the MSI Golden Edition 980 GTX Ti, and the reason I'm using the Golden Edition, it's got a better cooler and it's clocked a little higher, so if you're overclocking, this is going to give you slightly better performance than the Red and Black Edition from MSI. I'm not really too particular about what brand I use. I do prefer EVGA and Gigabyte as well as MSI. The rest of the cards I particularly don't care for. I just pretty much stick to the same 3 brands, EVGA, MSI, and Gigabyte. But when it does come to video cards, I tend to lean to MSI most of the time, although my last video card was Gigabyte. It was great. I've had a couple of EVGAs go bad. I've never had a problem with MSI before, though. but I mean, it's really relative at this point. They're all pretty much the same chipset, just depending on the cooler you're going to get. So with that being said, I've got the DDR4 3200 memory, 16 gigabytes of that. It's the new Trident Z series from G-Skill. The latency is 16, so it's super fast. I got the AX860 Corsair, which is the 80 certified platinum, which is one of the best in its class, if not the best power supply. So it's going to be very consistent. I'm going to be running a 1 terabyte SanDisk Extreme Pro SSD, which is going to give me between 400 and 500 megabytes per second read and write. I got this case here, which is DIY PC case. It's fantastic. You can control the top side, which are 2 fans, top and side, one in the front, one in the rear. You got the controls up here for that with 2 USB 2s, 2 USB 3s, and you've also got a hot swappable plate here, which I'll show you. You can put your SSDs, your 3.5 and 2.5 hard drives, and just slide it in here. It's got a docking station. It's a quiet case, too, because it's got a type of padding in the insulation. It allows the airflow to move quickly, but it's enough to dampen the sound, so it's a very quiet case. It's also light, only about 14 pounds. Now it also has trays that you can remove to clean the dust, so it's pretty much almost a dust-free system. It allows you to hide your wires away, which we're going to get into in a few minutes, but this is the ideal setup. If you're looking to build something a little more budget-friendly, you can go with the other Skylake processor, the i5. You can also go with a 970, or you can stick with the 980 and just swap out the board for an M3, which would save you about $200, or almost like $175. So that is the ideal setup. Try to stay away from Arctic Silver. I truly, truly recommend Tunic TX2 or TX4. The 4 is going to give you 1 to 3 degrees cooler over the TX2, but it's double the price, so it may not be worth it for you. But enough of my jibber jabber. This is going to be really good. I got some good stuff I'm going to be reviewing for you guys over the next couple of weeks. A lot more computer and video games equipment. But let's go ahead and get to this build. We're going to be putting this against my Mac Pro 8-core with dual D700s, which are basically ATI's Fire Pro W9000 workstation cards. They're really, really good for editing, ECC memory and all, but at $7,500, and then you go down to their 6-core, and that being $60-something hundred, and even their quad-core being right north of $4,000, you can have this setup for about $2,100. So, you know, go figure, half the price of their quad core. So it depends on if you're looking to build a budget friendly. If you still need to have the Mac operating system, for another video, but I'm going to be able to show you how to put Mac operating system on a custom gaming computer or custom editing computer. It's very easy. Before we begin, 2 more things to touch base on. If you have your ISO of Windows 10, get that from Microsoft. If you have Windows 7 or Windows 8, you can get it for free. They're giving it away. However you get that is totally up to you. If you've got the CD, you can boot from it to install. If not, and you want to make a USB, all you have to do is use a program called Rufus, R-U-F-U-S. I'm going to put that in the information box below, a link to get that. You basically grab that. I'm going to put a screenshot in here to show you what settings to use. You're going to use the GPT setting, and you're going to set it to NTFS. Find your ISO and tell it to write to your USB flash drive. It creates a bootable flash drive. Make sure that your BIOS points to the USB first to boot from, and that will allow you to boot from the USB and install Windows. Now, one more topic is this processor some people might be worried about because it only has 16 PCI Express lanes, but I think, in my opinion, this is superior in almost every way when it comes to gaming because its single core performance and dual core performance are much better than your 6-core and 8-core processors. And even though it only has 16 lanes, the new Z170 boards have 20 lanes built into the chipset. What does that mean? Well, that means think of it as a highway and traffic's going back and forth. You have a PCI Express 3.0 GTX card right here you got on the slot. You're going to get 16 times. So the card is going to be taking up all the bandwidth of the CPU. If you go SLI and you add another one, you're going to go 8 times 8 on the 2 cards, which is fine because you're running at PCI Express 3.0, which is much faster in 8x8 configuration than even PCI Express 2.0 was in 16x16. So it's really, really good setup. You don't have to worry about that. It takes up all the PCI slots from the i7 Skylake, but the chipset has 20 more coming down from the DIMM expansion, which is connected to the processor. It's a long, drawn-out explanation, so I'm just going to put the picture there, make it easier for myself and for you to understand that you can still run all your USB slots, your SATA drives, SATA 3, SATA 6 gigabits a second. You also can run the M.2 Flash PCI Express hard drives. You'll be able to have 2 of those. So this is a very expandable system. You don't got to worry about bottlenecking this CPU. Just get it up to 4.5, 4.8 gigahertz, and it is going to fly. You're going to be able to run 2 cards, 2 PCI Express hard drives, and all the connectors you want. It's going to fly. It's a great setup. But enough talking. You guys got the gist of it. Let's go ahead and start putting it together, get you guys a better view, and then we're going to put it against my old Bloomfield 920 i7 from 2008 with a 480 GTX and my new Mac Pro with dual D700s and 8-core processor, which is a server Xenon processor. And we're going to see how well we can get close to an $8,000 computer with a $2,100, $2,200 custom build. So let's have some fun and let's see what we can do. So I went ahead and took all the wires away inside the case, and we're going to get to that in a second. I've gotten that wide open so this way I can see everything and get the board put in it first for the cooler. They have the setups for the AMD, the LGA 1150, 1151, 1155, and the LGA 2011. This one here you can disregard. It's the Intel LGA 2011. You don't need that, and you also don't need all of these crazy brackets and couplers right here. You can set those aside. What you're specifically looking for is the back plate. You're looking for the wrench, of course, and then these two brackets which have 3 holes that have been drilled into it. Those are the LGA sockets, the 1150, 51, and 55. You're going to be wanting to use the middle one for the 1151. So we're going to basically have those are going to be mounted kind of pointing out on the cooler, if you can see, and they're going to go in just like this, and they're going to fit nice and snug. And then you're going to use the screws that come inside this baggie. There's only 2 mini Phillips screws, and they're going to go in on the top, which we're going to do in a second. That's going to hold that together. And how this is going to work is the back plate's going to go behind the motherboard, which we're going to do right now, and you're going to use the knobs to tighten them down. You want to make sure to get the back plate on before you install the motherboard, otherwise you're kind of screwed. So let's go ahead and put this back plate. It's got slider adjusters here. You're going to want to be on the middle of both. Again, the 1151's between the 1150 and 1155, so you're going to do that on all 4. You're going to want to lift the motherboard completely up. Have something padding so this way it's protected. You don't want to be too rough with these boards either, so be gentle when you place them through, and then you're going to lay it back down. It should fit perfectly. Now you're going to take these knobs right here, which have got like a type of groove on them for your fingers, and you're going to tighten them gently. It's got like a rubber padding on the side so it doesn't scratch the board, and you're just going to go finger tight, just decently snug. Don't over tighten them, and don't tighten too much until they're all on equally. You don't want to tighten 2 and then put the other ones on. Make sure they're all on just barely snug, and then you can go around and finger tighten them all afterwards. There we go, nice and tight. Now we're pretty much set up. The cooler will go on. We just got to basically get these 2 screws and brackets in here, which we're going to do. So you're going to be placing the brackets inside the groove kind of facing outwards. You're going to hold that up. The screw goes right here on the top, and you're just going to screw this in like so, which will get this nice and snug. Don't want to go too tight again, just snug is good enough. We'll go ahead and get the other side on. The exact same way we did the first one, inside the groove here. So basically the cooler is going to sit down on those 4 knobs that we had put down. There's a bump stop there for them to slide and rest on, and then the actual threaded screw part is going to come through the top, and that's where these double female knobs are going to go on the top, finger tight, and you're going to use the wrench to tighten them. But now that we've got our cooler completely set up, we're going to get the motherboard in and get all the wire connectors in here, and we're going to put the thermal compound on top of the CPU and get your cooler in place. And once this is locked in place and the board is in, getting the rest of the stuff put in is really easy. So now that we've got this all set up, everything's snug on the cooler, let's go ahead and put the CPU in now, because it'll make it much easier than trying to do it once it's in the case. We'll just get that secure and finished. We'll also get the RAM in, and then we'll go ahead and put the motherboard in. Now, one thing I want to touch base on, it does on this side actually have a complete dashboard that you can connect with a wire, which will allow you to have remote control over the board. We'll get into that in another video. That's some pretty advanced stuff, but allows you to, like, you know, overclock and increase the base clock and the CPU multiplier and stuff like that for overclocking. On the bottom of the board, you also have their quick overclocking for gaming. You basically set the option in the BIOS to be hardware controlled, and then you can just turn the overclock switch here 1 through 11. We're just going to leave it at 0, but you can basically boot the computer down, turn that knob a bit, then boot it back up. It'll automatically overclock for you the easy way. I prefer to go through the base clock and the multiplier and do it manually, but each to their own. Now, when you put the processor in, there's going to be a little triangle on the bottom left side if you're putting it in. I'm doing this upside down so that it's more relative to you guys, but you're going to want to do this with the this little triangle piece pointing down to the bottom left corner for you, and then the top, there's going to be 2 indents in the board, which are going to line up at the top left and right here. So you're not going to want to touch the top of this at all. You're going to want to go in with your fingers and grab the sides. There's even indents in the case, and you want to kind of just go in and grab it gently and let go of the case and just kind of drop it in, and you want to make sure there's no dust anywhere at all. And you're going to just drop it in gently. You got to have calm fingers for this. There you go. Once it's in place, you're going to go ahead and close the latch and pull this all the way back so that the latch pushes forward on this screw. So if you lift it up, you can see there's like a screw, and every time I move the latch, it just kind of goes closer to that screw to lock into place. And you're going to just push forward gently. It is going to be a little tight, and you're going to want to push forward. Just make sure everything's snug, and you're going to press this to the right and under and let it lock into place right here. So you've got a solid connection. So we got the RAM ready to go in. I'm using 2 sticks of RAM, so you're going to be using slots 2 and 4. That's the way MSI has it. If you're only using 1 stick, it'd be slot 2, but I don't know why I'd use 1. I got 2x8 here, which is for 16 gigs, which is plenty for gaming. If you're going to be editing, just add 2 more sticks of RAM. You'll be at 32 gigs, which is plenty. That's just the way they have it set up, though. For 2, you're going to use slots 2 and 4. And when you're placing this in, make sure to set it up so that this indent, the longer portion, is facing up. The shorter portion of the stick faces down. It only goes in one way. The connectors do come back on the top. They do not move at all on the bottom. So you start by placing these in the bottom. We're going to place the RAM into slot 2 first. You always place it into slot 2. That's just the way MSI has it. So now we're going to go ahead, we're going to get the board in. So I'm going to get you guys a closer look of how we're going to get this put in there. There's already, the pegs are on the actual case itself, and we're going to be using the screws that came with the motherboard to connect that. So here we are with the extra pegs to put in for the motherboard, and we're going to put them right here. And we're going to need 3 of them because you want to make sure that the motherboard is secure and even so you don't have any pressure going uneven against the board, which can cause it to crack. And you're just going to place these in, and then you'll be able to tighten them down once all 3 are in there snug. So now that we got these pegs nice and tight, and everything's ready to go, we're going to take the back plate, make sure you have the audio facing towards the bottom of the case. You're going to slide it in right here. Sometimes they can be a little bit of a pain to get in. You got to fiddle with them a bit, but they'll click into place. That's in. We can go ahead and get the board now and get it in and line it up with all the pegs on the bottom. So we're going to start by putting the bottom one in because it's the easiest to access on the outer side here. Once we get 2 of them in, then everything's going to line up perfectly. So we're going to get the power supply connected, and they're going to run right through here. All the power is going to run through here, and then it's going to come up through the inside of the case. And once we get all the connectors done, we'll be able to close off the case. It'll be pretty much almost a tucked setup where most of the wires will be completely gone. You've got all these connectors coming through from the case for the top mount connectors and fans. I'm going to show you how to put all these in once we go ahead and get the power connected. But first, we're going to get the connectors set up on the motherboard. This is the USB 2 connector, which we are going to route underneath here so that we don't have to see the wire as much. Just going to wire it actually down beneath all of it. This way you guys can see. I'm going to push this right here. USB 2 is now complete. We're going to go ahead and we're not going to worry about these fan connectors just yet. So now we've got the case facing it, so you can see we've routed the USB 3, the USB 2, and the audio for the front connectors through the back panel here. These are just the fan wires, which we will hook up to the connectors for the fan control, and that is powered. I've got it behind there so that when I set up my power supply, I can run the power wires back here and connect that for all these connectors, and then I'll run the power through here to the motherboard, which will power everything up. So I just want to mention right here, you've got the reset switch, power switch, HDD LED, and then you have the power LEDs, positive and negative. You want to make sure that the HDD goes on these two, and then the reset goes on the next two, the power behind it, and then the LED positive, negative behind that. So you're basically going to be essentially connecting the stuff for the switches on the front of the case to power it. So we're going to start off with the reset, which is going to go to these two. The last two on the prongs, you're not going to worry about at all. There'll be a diagram with your motherboard kind of going over that in a little more detail. But I'm going to make sure that I plug the HDD LED goes on these left bottom two. The top two is going to be reserved for these two right here, which are your power LED positive and negatives. And then you got the reset switch on the bottom right too, and then behind it the power switch above it. And then the last two, top and bottom, have nothing connected. So now that we have that out of the way, we are just about finished all the setup on the motherboard. All we have left is the top fan and the side fan connectors, which all connect to here. They're self-explanatory. It'll say top, side, and rear, and you're just going to connect them to this. The rest right now is connecting the power supply, which we're about to do right now. So we're going to go ahead and get the power supply connected in here. You're just going to slide it in like so to the bottom. It should fit right in nice and snug, and we're going to connect it via the rear ports. So here we go. We got the power supply right here on the bottom. We're going to screw in the 4 screws in the back to get it in place. These are all the connectors that you're going to be needing to connect all the power throughout the motherboard. It's fully modular, so you're going to connect them right into the power supply. So we're connecting everything right now, modular power supply. This is the PCI Express for the GPU. We're going to go here and look for the 24-pin motherboard power. There's another PCI Express. This is the SATA connectors right here. And these are the CPU connectors. We need those first. Going to get this lined up, and it's marked right on the power supply where to plug this in. Plug this right into the power supply. We're going to put the got another one right beside it. So we're going to go ahead and route the 24-pin power right through here. And bring it right up here through the top. Just like so. Bring that connector back through. And everything's routing nicely on the back. Now that we've got that connector and our GPU is here, we got to run our CPU power. So as you can see, with the last hour I've been busy tightening up all the wires and zip tying them back here and organizing them from the power supply. It's really not that hard. You just have to run it through the hole here on the side of the case, or whatever case you get will have a certain type of routing that you can get the cables to the back and zip tie them. I'll bring this around the front to show you how clean it looks inside. You're running all your power is going to be going to the bottom. So basically you're going to run your power through here, bring it up on the back side. It's going to come back out wherever you need it. Like the 24-pin comes up here. The PCI Express here, there's an extra power slot here depending on your motherboard. Most of the Z170s have this, and you're going to run a PCI Express 6-pin up to here, and you can route it to the back. Most of the other cables, like the USB 3 right here and the USB 2 and audio down here, are going to come to the back on the side, and everything else is pretty easy. These are the side panel fans, the only cables that I won't be able to get rid of. Everything else is pretty organized. It's just time consuming, but not really hard. It's pretty much the most time consuming part is tying up the cables in the back, getting things organized. But at this point, we're pretty much ready to get the thermal compound and the cooler on and the video card in, and then we're pretty much ready to power it up. I just want to give you a piece of advice here. that I only use Corsair power supplies. I've used EVGA a couple of times, but typically Corsair is who I use the most. That's what I've been using for almost every single build. And I will tell you, it says on the connectors only to the power connector. Like this is the 860. It says only 760/860. What that means is this side only goes to the power supply. So if you see that, that's the side that goes to the power supply. Your SATA power is going to be usually on the bottom here. Your 24 pin is going to be over on the left, and all your PCI Express will be on the top. It's modular. It's pretty straightforward, honestly. If you're finding it confusing, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't need to be there. So if you plug it in and it fits, it works. I know that's not really a professional way of looking at it, but if it's meant to be there, it'll fit no problem and it'll work. It's set up exactly to work the way it's supposed to, but there's even instructions on the bottom to tell you how to plug that in and tell you where everything goes, but just as a rule of thumb. So here we are. We're going to clean the processor just to make sure there's nothing on it. Make sure that the thermal compound sticks pretty well. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get out the compound here, and we're going to use the template that they have provided us. It comes with a little diagram in here to show you the AMD, the LGA 1336, and then the 1151. It's measured as wide as the sensor. So you're going to basically, before we do it, I'm just going to show you, you're going to place a little bit in the center, a little dab, and then you're going to spread half of it this way and half of it the other way. And what that will do is make sure that it's completely even, and then nothing, spills off the edge. Or you can put a little bit at the top if you want. There's no big deal if you want to do it that way and just spread it across. You're just going to be very careful. You don't want it to be gooping everywhere. So here we are. I'm putting it on right now, and I finally got the package open. After wrestling with it for like 10 or 15 minutes practically. So I've got the compound on. I'm going to go ahead and get the cooler in position. Don't forget to take off this security sticker on the bottom. And of course, make sure you wipe it so that it's clean as well. Gently place it over and evenly. Make sure you're on all 4 contact points on the screws, and then set it down gently. Now you're going to get the 4 thumb locking nuts here, and you're going to try to get your hands in there, which is going to be very, very tricky. As you can see, I'm having a little bit of difficulty with it. It's going to take a little bit of patience to get this part. Would have been easier to do it with the board out, but then I would have had to route all these wires with the cooler on. And that would have been no fun at all. So we got the first one on. The wrench they give you will tighten it the rest of the way. So we got this one in here. We took the memory out and it's in. Now we'll be able to start using the wrench to tighten it. Make sure you tighten these evenly. About a half a turn each. Don't just tighten one over and over again. But you will have to remove that one memory slot in order to do that. So now we got the cooler plugged in. We're going to go ahead and put, we're going to plug the fan into the CPU 1 slot right behind the processor. So now we got our fans plugged into the CPU 1 power slot right behind the processor and the cooler. You've got the 2 fans here. Make sure that your cable's not touching the fans. You don't want it to be grinding on that. We're going to go ahead and put our memory back in. So here we are with the MSI Golden Edition. It looks beautiful. Well, for a piece of hardware at least. I mean, all it is a video card. Going to line it up with the PCI Express slot. So now we have our video card in. All we got to do is start connecting everything and tighten this bolt down, and we are good to go. We're tightening down the video card now. It's in. Time to wire the power cable for the video card. So time to plug up the power. Got it turned around. Let's go ahead and get the PCI Express power connectors going in. It's going to take two 8-pin connectors, but this power supply has 4 of them, so you can run the SLI no problem. There we go. Power connectors are in. Going to go ahead and run this through here to the power supply. I'm going to put it up here so it's kind of out of the way, and then run it down here. This way we're hiding the wires as much as possible. And plug her in, and we are all set. Everything's good to go. We have everything that we need plugged in now, except I got to put my SSD hard drive, which is real easy to hook up. You guys know how to do that. We can go ahead and take a once over on it, and I'll show you what it looks like once everything's put back together here. But as you can see, it's finally complete. So there we have it. The back side is now on. The front is on. Everything is good to go. We got everything fantastic. Swing it around this side, and as you can see, everything is just so organized and nice. We go ahead and connect up this front panel here. So I found out that the top fan's not going to work because the cooler is too big. Should have known that, but it's fine. There are plenty of fans in this case as it is. Everything else is good to go. Everything else is great. Lock it all back up, and we are ready to install Windows. So now that everything's done, you're going to want to go ahead and install Windows from a CD that you may have. And if you don't have a CD, get the ISO, which is a disk image, and you're going to want to use a program called Rufus, R-U-F-U-S. It's an executable file that you can get for free. Just Google it. And when you open it, I'm going to put an image screenshot right there of the settings you need to use. Point it towards the image, use GPT to boot, and then use NTF as the file format and insert your USB drive. It'll recognize it and click start. And as you can see here in the images, it's going to do everything for you. You're going to put it in. You're going to go into your BIOS and select a boot from USB. I'd make that as your primary boot source, and then you will be booting up into Windows and installing it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this primed and get the CPU burnt in and get everything going well, and then I'm going to go ahead and put it up against my 8-core Mac Pro. So here we go, putting them side by side. Got the Mac Pro on the left with 1197 and the Skylake on the right with a 964. Pretty good run for the Skylake, beating out everything else that isn't a 6-core or an 8-core processor. Now, pay no attention to the GPU test, as I was around 20% usage on both computers, so Cinebench just doesn't accelerate the GPU, rendering the test inaccurate. Got Skylake against Devil's Canyon 4790, beats it in single and multi-core performance, a big improvement, much bigger than I even thought. Putting it against the 5960, it beats it in single core performance drastically, but it's trailing just over 2300 points on multi-core. Mac Pro 8-core against the 5960, beats it in single and multi-core performance. That's a very good processor in that Mac Pro. Comparing Skylake on the right to the Mac Pro, you can see it's beating the Mac Pro in single core, but it's behind considerably in multi-core, about 3,000 points. The Mac Pro is actually running Crossfire and Windows, as you can see right here. So we're going to go ahead and get the next test started. On the left is the Mac Pro. On the right is the 980 GTX Ti with the Skylake processor, and there is about an 8,000 point gap. When we go to Extreme, the gap is still there. It's about double the amount of points that we're getting in the Mac Pro, and going to the Ultra, there's the difference in the score right there. So the 980 GTX Ti and Skylake processor for gaming is much, much faster. Here we go. Look at the score difference, almost double the score yet again. Everything's between 75 to 100% faster on the Skylake and the 980 GTX Ti. So there you have it. It's a very, very good system for gaming and even for workflow editing. The only benefits to the Mac Pro are multi-core performance. And don't be confused, the Mac Pro is not slow for gaming by any means. I've gotten 60 frames a second in Quad HD in almost every game I've played. It's just that the 980 GTX Ti is a titan in disguise, and the Skylake has got the fastest single-core performance of any processor I've ever seen. So hopefully you guys have fun watching this video, and it's pretty amazing to see how this new Skylake processor can really hold up against an 8-core system like the Mac Pro, which is going for almost 4 times the cost. Granted, the multi-core performance is going to be about 15% better than the Skylake's, but the Skylake's single and dual core performance is going to be 10 or 20% better, so it's a little bit of a trade-off. But if you actually sit there and look at it, it's not trailing that far behind in almost anything you could possibly think of using it for. The only people that would benefit from an 8-core Mac Pro or a 12-core would be someone who's doing 3D graphic design, major editing, as well as illustration stuff that goes into 3D rendering and CG and stuff like that. But if you're just doing basic photo editing, or even you're doing 4K, 6K video editing, and you're doing a lot of gaming, this would be the overall rig for you. It's a really good setup, and as you can see from all the scores, it beat the Mac Pro in pretty much everything except pure multi-core, hardcore computing power, and that's about it. So if you're not into that, or if you're trying to save some money, this is the way to go. I'm also going to put out a video on the 5930, which is the LGA 2011 socket processor, and that is a true gem to have. But this is a great system and a great setup. You will not go wrong with it. Great setup, great computer. Hopefully you guys had fun. I got some more stuff coming. I've got a big review coming here. I'm going to be putting the R9 390X from AMD. It's the Radeon card. I'm putting it head to head with the 980 GTX Ti. I'm going to be playing Fallout 4 on it. I'm even going to be doing some Skyrim on the tests, maybe some Batman, Arkham Knight, or Arkham City. Going to be putting it through its paces and going to see which video card is truly better. I'm going to be using it in some real tests. That video is coming out in the next week or so. I'm getting ready to work on it in the next few days. And of course the D500, and I got the T6i from Canon review coming, and I'm listening, so make sure to put some requests down there in the comments. And if you want to purchase any of the gear I used in this build or any of the gear I review, got the links down in the information box, and B&H links are now beside the Amazon links. So support the channel, and if you happen to need to be purchasing any of the gear I review, just use the links to help keep the channel going. I got all kinds of stuff coming. Don't forget to subscribe, and I would love to hear all your comments. Put them down there below in the comment box, and we can chat about all this. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Still need beta testers for the forum boards. They're going to be up real soon. We're going to have a whole section dedicated to gaming, computer building, and of course photography, my passion. So happy shooting.